You are looking there at a $300 million tackle. That's $80 million of Hargrave, $170 million of Bosa, and I guess it's 285 if we use Chase Young's rookie deal, $34 million. But say he'll get about 50. It's not even a guarantee. I mean, extremely conservatively. I mean, probably going to get 90. Let's say he gets 50. That's a $300 million tackle right there. And that's the whole thing. Like for all the Kyle Shanahan, I'm going to read you a quote from Brock Purdy. For all the Kyle Shanahan and the offense and all that we love talking about, and Brock that we love talking about, it all starts from playing with a head. It all starts from playing from ahead, and these guys more than the offense make that happen. So it sounds superficial because you want to look at the game and say the offense got healthy, the defense got Chase Young, Steve Wilkes moved down to the field, they made a couple of it fresh coming off of a bye, and it wasn't about emotion. It was just about getting kind of a chance to reset. But because to say it was about emotion or they got humbled or whatever, but Bosa kind of alluded to it. And then I saw this quote. I didn't see this yesterday. This is after the game. This is Brock Purdy to Albert Breer. He said, if you look at the last couple seasons, we went through a stretch of losing a couple games and then sort of having to realize we've got to pick that up. We've got to have the chip on our shoulder and be hungry again. And then it was just going to finish out the season strong. For this season, we lost 3 in a row, going to the bye. It's been a sucky feeling. For all of us, we've got a bad taste in our mouth. So we got away a little bit, came back with a chip on our shoulder again, trying to play the Niner football we all know. Tells you something about the culture that, 2021 is part of something that he feels. Like anybody who's had anything happen in their family before they were born but heard about it a lot growing up knows, even though you didn't live it, it is part of your family history and you kind of feel it. And because the Niners, I think, have such a good culture, Brock, who was only there for 2022, experienced it in 2022 when they started 3-4, beat the Rams by 17, hit the bye, then won 9 more in a row, finished having won 10 straight. He wasn't there in 21 when they started 3-5, beat the Rams by 21, hit the bye. And, actually, they hit the bye earlier. I made that same mistake yesterday. I was talking about this. But finished having won 7-9. He wasn't there for that, but he feels it. He's heard it. The idea that they didn't have the chip is you don't like it, but it's understandable. And I think for this group, the one thing we've seen is that they have dealt with this, getting humbled. They don't have to deal with it twice. Usually once is enough to remember we don't want to go back there. Breer also wrote the 2019 team lost 2 games or lost 2 of 3 in December. And then, as he wrote, regained their mojo and went to the Super Bowl. So, this week is about the domination that everybody expects. That shows that it's back. Beating the Bucs doesn't prove anything. This is why I said during the bye, as much as you don't, in an ideal world, you wouldn't go on the road and play the hottest team in the league, the Jags. The flip side of that is if you go and beat them, this is what I said before the game when they won 34-3. If you go and beat them, you do prove to yourself that it's back. Forget about proving to everybody else, but you also prove to everybody else that you kind of got it back, right? Well, if they played the Bucs coming out of the bye and just beat the Bucs 34-3, what would we be saying today? We'd be saying, let's see it again. I'm here to tell you that's not what I'm saying. They're back. Now, you got to go beat the Bucs, break their brakes, beat their brakes off. And, this is kind of a game that is the test of what you just said if you're Brock Purdy. Like you just said, you guys lost the chip. You got beat. It was sucky. You got your chip back. Well, this is the test this week, right? If you really have your chip back, you don't beat the Bucs 24-17. You don't give up 20 points to Baker or whatever. If you really got your chip back, you go clap them cheeks this week, right? And then you play Seattle and you do it again. And then it's all about Philly. There's 2 things they can prove. One, in these next 2 weeks, is just that they can keep it going, that they're not going to get overconfident or, whatever it was, that's not going to happen to them again. Part of that, they played 3 good teams, right? Like, could you play the Bucs without your A game and win? hell yeah. You might be able to beat the Bucs with your C-plus game at home. But you weren't going to do that at Minnesota, not with the way Kirk played against you. You weren't going to do that against the Bengals, and you weren't going to do that in the rain against the Browns. So when you have a game like you have this week, where you know it doesn't take your A game to win, what do? Do you still bring your A game? So that's the first thing they can prove. Then they play Seattle, appropriate fear, take them seriously. There's nothing really else they can prove until they go to Philly. Remember, I think it's been a while, so people forget a little bit. Philly, understand this. I've got a buddy in Philly who texts me every week. Philly wants that game really bad. Whether you think it's fair or not, Philly thinks that the 49ers whined, complained, said it's not fair, made excuses after the NFC Championship game. So whatever you think about Philly, and the Niners looked better than Philly. Philly's coming off a bye. They have the Bills coming up in a couple of weeks. They play the Bills when the Niners are playing the Seahawks. The Niners are number one still, despite their struggles. 3 straight games scoring 17 points. The Niners are number one in offensive DVOA. The Niners are 10th in defensive DVOA. Philly is 7th in offensive DVOA and 19th on defense. I don't care what they look like the next 2 weeks. They play Kansas City this week. Kansas City is also coming off a bye, so the Eagles and the Chiefs are kind of playing the same game the Niners and Jags just played. Both teams off a bye. Another NFC, AFC matchup. So I don't care if they lose that game by 50. They're not gonna. But if they were to, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they somehow Joe Brady and the Bills beat them. The scenario, honestly, I don't think you want that scenario. But Philly, there's a belief, and I hold it, that they have not been playing as well as their record. But it doesn't matter to me at all. All I know is if you got to play them at their place in the playoffs, I don't care how much you're rolling. That's going to be really tough. And they've got a target on your back. You think you got a target? The Niners think they got a target on Philly's back. Well, Philly's got a target on their back. They did not enjoy hearing the Niners talk like the only reason they lost that game, or we wish we'd have had a fair fight and all. Philly's looking at it like, no, part of the game is hitting your quarterback. You didn't protect him. We hit him. Hassan Reddick, one of our best players, knocked your guy out. Then knocked your next guy out. That's who we are. Like, that's the way they look at this. So they're going to have a chip for the Niners. And I hope the Niners understand that. So good news on that game for the 49ers. Mayoko reported this yesterday. That game will not get flexed to Sunday Night Football, according to Matt Mayoko. Mayoko wrote that several sources at Fox have told him that Fox will protect that game. CBS and Fox each get a game to protect from getting flexed to Sunday Night Football every week, and that Fox will protect that game from getting flexed, which is great news. The Niners will have the schedule. The Niners have been largely at the scheduled disadvantage so far this year, as you may know. When they played the Browns are coming off a bye. When they played the Vikings were not coming off a bye. When they played the Bengals were coming off of a bye. When they played the Jags, the Niners were coming off a bye, but so was Jacksonville. I think that's the end of their scheduled disadvantages. I believe it is. This next week, here's where the schedule starts to change in the favor of the Niners. And this game not getting flexed is a part of that. Obviously, they play the Bucs this week. Next week, they play at Seattle on Thursday Night Football. Playing at Seattle in and of itself on a short week, obviously, you're the disadvantaged team there. But Seattle's at least not coming off of a home game, and they are. So the Niners are coming off a home game. Seattle's coming off a road game, albeit Rams, so easy trip. But at least Seattle's not coming off a home game to a Thursday night. Seattle's coming off a road game to a Thursday night. And then even though that's a disadvantage a little bit, it flips into an advantage for the Niners because they're going to have 3 extra days of rest when they go to Philadelphia, and Philly is coming off of the game at home to Buffalo. Philly's going at Kansas City, then Buffalo. So that's a little bit of an advantage. Well, I should take it back. The Cardinals are coming off a bye when the Niners play them week 15. And then there's, okay, it's not the end of the disadvantages. Then they go to the Commanders on a short week for the Niners because the Niners play Monday, Christmas. Niners play Christmas Day, which is Monday, December 25th, and they go to the Commanders. All right, so it's not the end of the disadvantages, but at least they're not playing as many teams off byes. On the one team they are playing off a bye, the Cardinals aren't as good as the teams they've played, although the Cardinals might be playing better football by the time they get there. Yeah, that game was not going to end up on Sunday, but it's just a good thing that it didn't end up on Sunday Night Football. You don't want to have to go there late on a Sunday. It's just a good thing it was never scheduled on Sunday Night Football. It's just an advantage to Philadelphia if that game ends up on Sunday Night Football. So when I look at this team now, I do think they flipped the switch. I think using their recent history and the fact that they're largely healthy now makes me believe they've got a real shot to go 7-1 here down the stretch in these last 8 games. Or 7-1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7-1, which would be 9-1, counting that Jags win, which would be pretty special. That's what they look like again. I think people are going to protect against getting, overexcited about them after they got excited about them and they lost 3 in a row. Understandable. They'll be favored in all but 2 of these games. One of them will be at home, the Ravens, who right now are, I think, 5 in offense, 5th in offense in DVOA, and 2nd in defense. And the other thing we've seen with this group, because they are a defensive, I think they are a defensive first team, as crazy as that sounds. They're a defense first team, and they run the ball. You would love to have home field. You'd love to get the bye. Imagine, I was just thinking, watching them play the Jaguars, how fresh they looked. How much this team would love the first round bye in the NFC playoffs. I think it benefits everybody. Philly is beat up, is always beat up by the time you get to the postseason. Everybody is. That 1 seed is going to be hard to get, but it's within reach. It's still there for them. They don't control their own destiny, but technically, but they kind of do. I mean, is Detroit, going to go 15-2 this year? Probably not. Are they going to go 14-3? I'm going to say probably not. 13-4, that's in the realm. Okay. So 7-1, that's also 13-4 if you're the Niners. Philly, they're 8-1. Are they going to keep that up? Well, I mean, to a degree, yeah. Like this stretch that they just got through, we've been looking at, like, I don't know how they're going to get through the Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo stretch. Well, let's see. They beat Dallas 2 weeks ago. Now they go to Kansas City. I think they'll win at least one of these next 2 games. So they're going to come out of it fine. And if they were to lose to either one of these next 2 opponents, neither one of those is an NFC game. But first thing first is your overall record. So you're going to get them head to head. So I think they got a real shot. They always have an odd loss to someone you don't expect. Didn't they just have that 3 times? Yeah, I mean, it's true, though. They do. The Cardinals game, the Commanders game. Go lose the Commanders. Moody still is my hesitation. I know some people, it's the secondary. We've been dealing with the same conversation about the Niners secondary since they started competing for championships under Kyle Shanahan. Give me that guy. Give me that guy. Give me that guy. Give me that guy. Okay. Yes, they do have cornerbacks that teams will go at. There's no question about it. And yes, you would have loved to have Patrick Surtain. This group is good enough on defense, the way they looked the other day, back after it, to win a championship. The offense is good enough to win a championship. So you would have liked to improve it. Jake Moody's driver is still just spraying. And I know he hit 2 kicks last week. The first one was a line drive that was not. It was not coming back. Just watch the ball flight on these Moody kicks. You look at the stat sheet and you go, drama free. But watch the ball flight. It's you know what it's been like? It's been like Brian Wilson Giants closer, who was excellent. Like the numbers were, but it was a ride every time he came into the game. It was a wild ride. And you just knew at the end of the year, it'll all balance and he'll have a really good year. But on any given game, you didn't know, is today the day it's going to just go sideways? What is that crazy look in his eye? And where's the ball going? And then during his prime, it worked out. Watch Moody's ball flight. The first kick he kicked did not come back and land, even though it doesn't have to be right down the middle every time. But, it'd be nice not to flirt with the right upright 2 out of 3 kicks. And he kills the ball. So I'm concerned about that. Because when you talk about going 7-1 down the stretch here, trying to get a 1 seed, going 6-2, flipping the switch, okay? Again, 7-9 down the stretch 2 years ago, 10-0 down the stretch last year. So I think you have to, at this point, expect 6-2 minimum. Anything less would be a disappointment, given that Brock Purdy says we got our chip back. And even then, you would feel like 12-5 would feel like a regular season underachievement. It would. Like this should be a 13-4 team. So maybe they'll get there. They've done it. They've done it consistently. So I'm actually optimistic that they're not going to get that weird loss, that they are going to go into the playoffs hot, and that they're going to go win the NFC and go to the Super Bowl in Allegiant Stadium. Based on the schedules for the Lions, Eagles, and Niners, the Lions have the best chance to be the 1 seed. Yes, based on the schedules, that's true. The Lions' schedule is very favorable. We talked about it a little bit yesterday on the show. And, yeah, there's no question. They have a favorable schedule. They do. You know what I've said repeatedly for 2 years now? At the end of the day, are you going to be afraid of getting beat by Jared Goff? I don't think you will. For the Niners, I'm not saying the most of the league, more than good enough. The Niners they've changed coordinators. They have not changed their elite players. I think he fits the bill of guys they can play. Italy, tell me more. I want that itinerary. On Moody, give us his one loss because of a field goal, or are there more to come? Oh, did Moody give you his one? Well, I mean, don't have these games come down to a field goal, but it's not, you're going to go play Philly. One of these Ravens games, one of these Seahawks games is going to get weird. At least one of them. Ravens, I don't think this is the end of. I don't know. We have not seen the end. Not I don't think. I know we have not seen the end of Moody's roller coaster ride. I know. We broke it down yesterday. I know. Are we sure they're not going to win out? No, I guess we can't be sure. I don't want to be the Lions non-believer because they've already made me look bad, but I'm not all in. Because of the quarterback. This the guy last year, Dan Campbell called him out last year. Like, he's got to step it up. Like, ripped him publicly. What they're doing is really impressive. They're a good team. They might be the 1 seed. They're a legitimate team. If you went to go play them, if the Niners have to go play them in the playoffs, I will not be comfortable before that game for the Niners. Like, it's going to be an excellent crowd, well coached, super aggressive, very talented, fast. They got speed, all that. Tough to cover. But that doesn't mean I got to be all in on them. I'm not. Vikings, Niners, part 2 in the wild card. I mean, if that happens, it's like without Kirk. None of the 3 Seahawk games were close last year. Yeah, I just know with Pete Carroll, I just don't write that team off. They got good talent at receiver. 49ers need to be able to come from behind. They are one-dimensional. In this Breer article, a lot of quotes from Garoppolo, and Garoppolo has said many times, he said it like a month and a half ago. Tim Kawakami asked him, "What is your number one stat that you look at?" And he said turnovers, and he said it again to Breer. And I know Mart said they simplified some things for Brock, and Brock said, we did a better job of protecting the ball this week against the Jags, but that's true. Like, that part of it has not been proven because the Jags game, they were rolling. They were playing from ahead. They were getting turnovers. They weren't in the same late game situations that they were against the Vikings and the Bengals. And the Browns. So I agree. I don't think. Did they protect the ball better last week? I mean, I guess they did. But the question is not, can you protect the ball for 4 quarters? They've proven they can protect the ball for 4 quarters when they're getting 4 takeaways and playing from ahead. They have not proven it yet when they're playing from behind and have to push the ball and take risks. So, when and this is part of the deal. When Brock says, I learned I got to be a little smarter with the ball. Some game situations don't allow for you to be smarter with the ball. And the same thing happens with the Niners. That's why they get turnovers, because they play from ahead. And then the other team has to do desperate things. And then the pass rush is breaking them off. And here comes Nick Bosa chasing down. Bosa, the second turnover he created was a product of the Jags being kind of in a desperate spot. And Trevor Lawrence trying to make a dumb play with Nick Bosa on him, trying to just make a play. Sometimes you just try to make a play when you're trailing. There's a clock. You're running out of time. And that was a product of the Niners being in control of the game. So we'll see. That question still exists. There's no doubt about that. Final record prediction and seed prediction. So let's see, 12, which means they would have to be. I got to tell you, it sounds crazy to say they're gonna, but based on their recent history, 7-1, 13-4, 2 seed. Marco says, Guy, a little off topic, but you are to hair with college quarterbacks. Top of the game, my friend. Thank you. Didn't get a cut this week because APEC is going on in the city. Now, my barber said I could come to his house, but I don't think I needed to this week. But I'll be back in next Tuesday. It helps having the deal that I have with my barber, which is unlimited haircuts for a flat fee. 4-year contract. We are coming up. December will be 2 years down in the contract, 2 years to go in the contract. And so it really helps. I don't know when my unlimited haircut contract is up, if I'm going to, I don't know how I could go without getting a haircut every week. Like, I didn't get one this week, but in general, I've been about, I would say, in a 52-week year, by the end of this year, I probably will have gotten, I should log it, but I'm going to guess that I will have gotten 35 haircuts. So that's a lot. The team is built to play with the lead. Edge rushers running are the strengths. The more you watch them, the more it's like, front runner has such a negative connotation because it means you are mentally soft, like you can't handle adversity. They're not that. They're just literally a team that runs better in the front. So I don't know what the name for that is that doesn't have a negative connotation, because they play from the front a lot, so it's fine. That's more reliable than being like, the cardiac kids, the comeback kids. I mean, that's all well and good, but you'd rather just. And it's part of Kyle's game plan, right? His game plan is this game's going to take 4 quarters. And what's going to happen over the course of 4 quarters is we're going to be more physical. We're going to wear you down. And if things go wrong early, it sends them scrambling. Fizzle zizzle. When healthy, the Niners can come from behind. They just don't have to when healthy. No team can match them. Everybody eventually has to win games from behind, even when fully healthy. It's just the nature. You have to. You have to. You have to do it. You have to do it. You must do it. So they haven't proven that they can consistently do it yet. Brock hasn't proven that he can consistently do it. He hasn't had a ton of opportunities. I mean, he's had like 3, 4. One of them was last year. Did it, Raiders. You'd say he did his job against the Browns, missed the field goal. That's part of who they are, though. Vikings, Bengals didn't do it. So, as I've said, and I'll repeat it, the problem is not that Brock can't mentally handle it. The problem is not that Brock chokes. There's a difference. Just because you haven't done something or failed, just because you fail doesn't mean you choke. Just because sometimes you succeed doesn't prove you're mentally tough enough for it. But he doesn't. That's the good news, I would say. Is like when I've watched him in the late game situations, the turnovers that he's made, it's not been because he's panicked. It's not been because he's can't handle the pressure. That's the one thing where Mart's making the Montana comp. You're like, well, it's a lot of it sounds crazy, but I do buy, like, there's just something about this dude upstairs that he's already proven that he has. I buy that with Brock to this point. Second half versus Rams. Who's saying they can't be beat? Should be terrified every week. I mean, they lost. I mean, we just saw it for 3 weeks in a row. Raiders and Browns count. Browns should count. Well, I mean, it didn't. They didn't. You don't. No, it didn't count. Didn't count. It's like, yeah, it didn't count. Defense couldn't get off the field in 3 losses. Brock had to try. And there's going to be games where they pick him up. I mean, last week was one. Last week was not pick him up, but a total team game. Who cares about Baldinger and Mike Martz? I don't know. I think it's interesting. People who've been there. Who, if we don't care, who do we care about then? Me? You? Who's anybody? So that's where I got him. We'll see if he's right. If the history holds, they're in good shape. So, 2 things to prove: go pound the Bucks, go pound the Seahawks, win by 7, whatever. Who cares? Moody's got to make his kicks. At this point, that's the only question left with this group. Can Moody consistently make kicks? They're going to be in close games. That's it. Don't worry. No gasket blown. We good. Give me your take. How about that, Prodigy? Yeah, audio sounds kind of weird. Thank you for the feedback. I didn't hook up the normal mic here, so I wanted to test it out, but actually I wanted that feedback, so thank you, TJL. I'll listen back to it afterwards. But how's it sound weird? What's weird about it? Weak? Not as clean? Let me know what you think. I didn't say that at the beginning, but I meant to say it, so thanks. All right. That's that. I guess you don't have time to give me the feedback. DM me, something like that. But I'll listen to it here shortly. Okay. Got to roll. We will do another live stream. Treble high. Ooh, muffled. Okay. Sounds clean, but not as usual. All right, cool. Thanks for the feedback, guys. We'll have another show live stream coming up a little later today. I'm traveling tomorrow, and so we were like, we could do it early tomorrow or do it later on Wednesday. So we're going to do it later on Wednesday. And that's that. So we'll have more to talk about later after Kyle Shanahan talks today and get some predictions in for the weekend. Not crisp. Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, got to roll. Thanks for hanging, everybody. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. That helps. We appreciate it. And bring your takes. Here we go. Thank you. I was going to wait for this guy's take, or this person's take. I think the Niners should stop acting and go do something besides get second place. You know what? We agree on that. I mean, a lot of swag, a lot of talk, a lot of we're the man, and then no championship. With you. All right, got to roll. Later, everybody.